Aloha, this is Brian Watkins, and you are watching my video tutorial for Accounting 231 Excel Exam 5. In this exam, you're going to prepare a spreadsheet that shows the present value of an ordinary annuity. Annuities are streams of payments that are made into an investment account or to a creditor with a constant interest rate over a constant period of time. For example, your iPhone is an annuity. It's called an annuity due because your payment's made at the beginning of each period, but you can use some formulas to figure out exactly what the present value of those future cash payments are now. So it will help you greatly to do well on this project if you'll just take a quick look at what an ordinary annuity actually is. I've given you a page that is my attempt to explain the basics, but I've given you also a link, and the link goes to Investopedia, has a nice little video, but even more important, it has a drawing showing you how this future value is calculated. And you can see that future value, I better not check on that. It shows you the future value of an annuity formula. Okay, we're not going to have to memorize that formula. We're going to let Excel do it for us. So let's get started. This will be our last portrait mode project. So we're going to take columns A through G, and we're going to widen those to a 12. I'm going to zoom my screen here so you can see it better. Okay, you should have your test in front of you. This exam is the present value of an ordinary annuity. Okay, so the title gets bold and underlined. It's prepared by you. It's prepared on whatever date you're doing this exercise. And this spreadsheet will take a 10-year ordinary annuity and calculate the values by using both Excel functions and through the use of regular Excel tables. At the end, a graph of the results will be prepared. All right. Okay, again, same way we have in the past. We'll take one line, merge, wrap, top, and left, and push that right here. All right, let's get our data section. Give our data section a light blue and a thick box. And if we bring in our exam, which you should have close by, I give you all 5 of the pieces of information you need to compute this ordinary annuity. But I want you to, we're going to do one blank here. I'm going to show you how to calculate the payment, which is accurate to 9 decimal places, by using a function in Excel. So let's put these in here. The first thing we do, future value of the annuity. This is what we hope to have in our account at the end of these 10 years. Okay, and we'll have the annual interest rate, and then we'll have the annual annuity payment, the number of years in the annuity, and the type of annuity. And we're going to name these cells. So we're going to do Control Shift F3, hit OK, and then cut and paste our cells. So let's check future value of the annuity, annual rate. Looks like our paste is good. Now, the number of years is going to be fixed in this exercise at 10, and the type of annuity is going to be 0, which I'll show you later means ordinary annuity. So I want you to leave a message for your user that 0 equals an ordinary annuity. The other 3 can be entered by the user with any number the user desires. Okay, so we have 0.1058 interest rate, 333,000 desired future value. So let's make the future value a currency. The payment will also be a currency. And we're going to add two decimal places. And let's center them all left to right. Okay, I know there's a hole there for the annual annuity payment. We're going to leave that. We're going to calculate that later. So let's go to the answer section now. Control B, Control U. I'll make this green, light green. And the answer to the whole problem is the present value. Okay, and then we're going to find out what's our future value. And I'm going to have you do a check figure for both of those. Okay, now the present value of the annuity, if you'll recall, the formula is right here. C times a fraction of 1 plus the interest rate raised to the number of periods minus 1 over the interest rate. You don't have to remember that. This is one reason why Excel is so widely adopted. If we look at the formulas library, they have literally hundreds of different functions. I couldn't even tell you half the math stuff here. It's got functions for engineers, statisticians. So Excel comes in handy for these kinds of calculations, because all you have to remember is you want present value. So you could go down here and there it is, PV. Okay, we can close the cheat box here, although it's not cheating. If you wish to use the box, that's fine. But I'd rather you just remember PV, and then the helper box comes in. And the bold one is the one that you need first, so it's on rate. So I'm going to give it annual interest rate. When I hit the comma, the bold shifts to NPER, which is number of periods. We're using 10, always. This is going to be frozen on this spreadsheet. Okay, the payment is going to be in this box, even though we don't have it yet. The future value we hope to have at the end of this 10-year period is 333,000. And finally, the type is 0. All right, that is, let me move this out of the way so you can see it. That is our formula. And we're missing one number in that formula. We're missing the payment. Excel has a function that allows you to solve for one missing variable, and it's called the goal seek function. Before we go to that, let me tell you what you're looking at. The present value right now of an account that you hope to have $333,000 in 10 years at an interest rate of 10.58, you would have to start with $121,808.72. At this rate, in 10 years, you'll come up with this future value. But we want to help a client who desires to start from nothing and make a payment at the end of each year for 10 years and then have this money. This is the way businesses handle their cash flow needs. You might think of this if you're a young family and have a baby boy or girl that wants to serve a mission in 20 years. You could sit down and calculate how much money, at whatever interest rate you can find, you would have to put aside each month in order to send that child on a mission in 20 years. And you would be surprised by how low that amount is if you start early. So what we want right now is we want to figure out what number goes here that will make that present value 0. We go to the Data ribbon, and we're going to go to What If Analysis in the Forecast box. Very important that you can find this. Then we're going to use Goal Seek. We're going to find one missing variable. There's 3 questions you have to answer for Goal Seek. What cell am I going to change? Okay, well, I want the cell that has the formula in it, which is C16. It automatically realized that's the only formula there. Don't make the set cell your blank. Okay, the blank cell is the one we're going to change. We want to set the present value to 0, which means we want our client to start from nothing. If our client already has some money, then we would use that in the value. We'd say set it to 10,000 and tell us how much you need to get up to 333,000. Here we're going to use 0. The cell we're going to change, if I use the select box here, I'm going to click on that. Then I can go to my annual annuity payment, click on that, and then I can go back here and say enter. Okay, these are the 3 numbers you have to remember because you're going to have to do goal seek on your test. So here's OK. Now watch the annual annuity payment. See how the computer went through a number of numbers until it found exactly the right one. And if I hit OK, you'll find that it just put a number there. There's no formula. And that number is accurate to 9 decimal places. Okay, so let's do that again. I'm going to clear that. Okay, I'm going to go to What If Analysis, Goal Seek. I'm going to set the cell that has the formula in it, which is the present value formula. Remember the PV formula. Set it to 0 by changing the cell that has the payment in it. Computer comes up with the number, found a solution. I hit OK, I'm done. That's my number. Okay, we're now going to move on. I want to name the present value because I'm going to have a check figure formula. So I'm going to say present value. Whoops, what did I do? I entered a space. So present underscore value. That worked better. So I'm going to click away and click back. That's good. Now the future value is the FV formula. Okay, we have the rate, comma, number of periods, comma, the payment, comma, the present value, which is here in the answer section. That's a little different. And then comma, the type of annuity. That's our future value. Do not name the future value cell. You already have a named future value cell. Naming 2 future value cells will just mess you up. We just did this to kind of serve as a check. Okay, now to read this, this says if I start at 0 and I make a payment of $20,320.40 at the end of each year for 10 years into an investment paying 10.58%, at the end of all that I will have $333,000. Good. I want you to understand how this works, so we're going to start by proving this up by preparing a present value table. Okay, we're just going to make a little short 2-column heading here with a bright yellow and box it. Now, at this point, I want you to refer to your test, prepare the present value table with these columns. Okay, you don't have to memorize this, it's in the test. Okay, and I also want to note right here that I'm giving you 45 minutes on this test. So be not slow, but be methodical, be careful. All right, so we're going to have a table, and it's going to have a year. It's going to have the end balance, okay, because we're going to find out the present value. We're going to start at the end here. There's going to be a payment, interest. We're going to figure out what it started at, and then we're going to do a check figure. Okay, so what we're going to do with this table, bold, underline, and center, is we're going to start beginning in year 10 at the very end of our annuity. Whoops, and 0. And I want all of my year numbers centered. I'm going to start at the end when I have a future value of $333,000. Okay, and what I want to do, I'm going to make this comma. I want my table to reduce this balance from 333 all the way to 0. So this table will show me if my math is correct. Now, this column is going to have a 2-part formula. Obviously, you need to go up and you need to get the future value here. But if you were to copy this down, it will never change because you have absolute values there. So don't copy it down. Instead, year 9 is just going to be a reference to the beginning balance at year 10. Okay, make this a comma, and that gets copied down. All right, so remember, I'll show formula view here. This is a two-part formula. First, you get it from the top, and then you just refer to the beginning balance. The payment is going to be the annual annuity payment. Okay, now the present value you are subtracting from your ending balance to get to 0. So we want this payment to be negative. All right, so I put comma on there. See how it's got brackets? That's negative. So 333,000 minus 20,320 minus the interest I earned in that year should give me the amount that I then begin year 9 with. So I have to figure out how much did I earn in interest that year. So the first thing I do is I take this number and the payment and I add them together. Now, when I add a negative number to a positive number, I'm really doing a subtraction. Okay, so this number here is how much I have at 11:59 p.m. on the last day of the year. And then I swoop in at the very last minute and make the 20,000 payment, and that gets me to this 333. So this is the balance of interest that I've earned at the end of the year. So now I can back out the interest by dividing it by 1 plus the interest rate. Okay, just remember that formula. I'm going to explain it some more in class, and if you want to learn more about how that interest formula works, I'm happy to tell you. But essentially, by dividing by 1 plus the interest rate, we're going to back up that number, and that is the beginning balance at year 9. Okay, now just to show you that that worked right, if I take this balance and I multiply it times our interest rate, okay, and remember I have to have a negative here because it's a negative number, so I'm going to put a negative sign there. That tells me that I earned 29,000, close to 30,000. So 333 minus the 20 minus the 29.9 equals the beginning balance. So here's the future value, and here's my present value. All right, so all we have to do now is copy those down. And at year 0, I get exactly to 0, to the penny. So my calculations show how that works. These three numbers are junk, so I'm just going to clear those. Make sure you clear your chart junk there. Okay, so if I have this number right here, I'm going to call that my calculated present value. I started with all my assumptions at year 10 with this payment, with my regular interest rate, and showed what happened every year, and I calculated down to 0. Now let's double check that formula that we used right there. And we can double check it by using the present value formula. It's the present value table. So PV, what's my rate? Well, my rate's always going to be the same. What's my number of periods? This is year 10. It's 1 year. I want to change from this number to this number, just 1 year. So remember that. All these check figures are for 1 year. The payment, I'm going to click on it. The future value, that's the end balance. I'll click on that. And the type, of course, is always going to be the same throughout this exercise. That will tell me how much 333,000 is worth at the beginning of the year. And you see, it's exactly the same as my beginning balance. So now to complete my check figure, all I'm going to do is add it to the calculated beginning balance. That should make it disappear. A good check figure, I'm going to turn that to comma, just kind of disappears. It only shows up with an error if I have an error. So at this point, I take my check figure and I'm going to pull it down all the way to year 1. I don't want it down here in year 0. All of these selected cells must be blank. All right, this is a complete good present value table. It has 2 negative numbers in the middle because it's subtracting everything to get to 0. So how do we then format the table? And what I'm referring to here is Number 6, both tables must be formatted as tables. Okay. You'll recall table format from your pivot tables. We're basically going to take the headings and all of our numeric data, go to our home ribbon, format as table. And I'm just going to pick a format there. And the way I can tell that this is formatted as a table is I have filter buttons. So if I want to see just year 4 or year 3, I can do that with the table. Okay, I'm going to clear the filter. So don't format as a table if your math is not right, because you can't fix it up once you make it as a table, because table math is different. It has a different kind of formula. So if you screwed it up and you want to go fix your formula, select the table again, right click, and what you're going to do is you're going to go table, convert to range. Ranges are normal. Okay, and the only thing that'll change here is those buttons will go away, because the blue and all of that is just formatting. So if you forgot the interest rate there, then you could say, for example, your table looked like this, which would be a 5-point error because your interest is not negative. With your formatting not as table, you can change this very easily and then go back and reformat as a table. But don't try to change your formulas with tables on, because the math is different. Alright, now we're going to do a future value table. In the future value table, we're going to start at the beginning and we're going to move forward, and we're going to show how 0 becomes 333,000. So we're going to look and we're going to say year. This time we start with the beginning balance, payment, interest, and we're going to have an end balance. We'll also have a check figure, and just to remind you, the future value table is laid out for you as well, so you don't have to memorize that. Just read your directions. Okay, so these are headings. They're bold, underlined, centered. And my year is going to start at year 0 and go to year 10. And your years need to be centered under their heading. Alright, now I'm ready to start. The only thing that you should see in year 0 is a reference to the calculated present value from the prior table. That's it. There should not be anything else. That shouldn't say C32. Let's try this again. So if I go to my formulas, name manager, calculated, I guess it didn't stick. So I'll go back. Okay. We want this to be calculated underscore present value. Okay, hopefully it's stuck this time. So let's do perfect. That's what you want. You want both of these tables linked together. Now, we talked about this earlier. This number represents a very, very tiny rounding error. A decimal point with 10 zeros and then 1875. So as soon as I format that as a comma, it goes to 0 and behaves. Alright, so my beginning balance will always be the end balance from the prior year. Done. My payment will always be the same amount. However, this is an addition table because I'm starting at 0 and I'm adding numbers to get to the 333,000. So I'm going to use a negative sign to force that to be positive. So 0 plus the payment. The interest is really easy because it's principal times interest, annual interest rate, times 1 for 1 year. Obviously it's 0 that time. And the end balance is the sum of the prior 3 numbers. Okay, this table is really easy. So you can see that in the first year I didn't earn any interest because I made the payment at the end of the year. But when I copy this down, so double click here, it went perfectly to $333,000 on the dot. Zero pennies in error. That is the calculated future value. Okay, so that's my future value table. I can check it by saying what's the future value. So if I hit F3, by the way, that will give me a list of my memorized names. So I want rate, comma, 1 period, because this is just 1 year. My payment, I'll just click on that. My present value was 0. And my type comes from the top. It's always the same. Okay, and just like we did the first time, we're going to add that to the number directly to the left of the cell. And if it's right, it will cancel out and be nothing. Okay, so if I didn't add it to the cell, just to show you, we've calculated that it's the same either way. And if you think about the annuity, this is easy because the first year doesn't earn any interest. So the only thing you have is the payment. But in successive years, you earn interest. And we make that a comma. Copy this down. And we've calculated, it looks correct to me. So we're going to take this whole thing and format as a table. Let's give it a different color this time. And let me just show you the question here, just in case somebody wonders. When I click on this, it said, does your data have headers? Well, yes, it does. These columns are headers for your data. So if you did this and you see something like column 1, column 2, erase it and start over because you didn't tell it that you had headers. All right, now let's do our check figures. The check figure for present value is the present value we calculated using Excel minus the present value we calculated using math. Okay, that rounding error, let's make it a comma. And it's the same for this. Okay, so that's remember, you don't have a name here, that's fine because we've already named it, minus the calculated future value. And let's be consistent here, comma. I see a lot of students lose points. These are both in currency format, so they're consistent with this one. And these check figures are both in comma format, even though it doesn't look like it, because there was a rounding error there. All right, so our tables are good. So now what we're going to do is our graph. Graphing in Excel is very easy. You can do a lot of very interesting data analysis with Excel these days. They're increasing the graphing tools every time they release a new version. What we're going to do is click on End Balance. And we're going to pull it down to the last item of data. Okay, we've selected the data we want to graph. Okay, let's look at this. Create a line graph demonstrating the ending balance of the future value table. All right, so let's do it. End balance, all the way down. We're going to go Insert, and this little squiggle right here is a line chart. So we'll click on that. And just take the first sample that comes up, a very basic line chart. There it is. Now we're going to move it by clicking into the chart, and with the button held down, I'm going to drag it so it's roughly centered beneath my future value table. All right, 3 things I want you to do to this chart, 5 points each. First is edit the title of the chart. Click on the title box comes up. Click again to put a cursor there. And give me something, anything other than end balance. I want you to show me you know how to edit a title. Click on the title, click again to put a cursor in it. All right. The next one's a little tricky. You want to click on the numbers on the left and then right click immediately. And there's 2 different things that could possibly come up. We got lucky this time and it went straight to Format Axis. But sometimes, let me see if I can get it to do Now it's behaving now. Sometimes it'll come up and you won't see the format axis. Just do it again until you see it. And when you click on it, you want to tell it the minimum bounds of your graph is 0, not -50. So all you have to remember is the first box that comes up when you format the axis, you're going to make that a 0. Alright, so as soon as I hit that, that's adjusted. So that's the second 5-point skill. The next one is to change these numbers at the bottom to match how you've defined your data. So I'm going to close out of format axis, and what I want to match here is the 0 through 10. Okay, so I'm going to click on the number. Now I've got an edit box. This time, instead of formatting axis, I'm going to select my data. So here are my data points. They're coming from 2 points. The title's coming from here, my data point's here, but it's just counting to give me my labels. I don't want it to count and make up its own labels. I'm going to edit them, and I want it to go. So here it's saying axis label range. I'm going to click on the 0 and drag to the 10. And it will just pick up those data points, and when I hit OK, it puts them in the graph. So now I'm going 0 through 10. And later we'll do a graph where we'll, not in this project, but in another project, where we go January through December in the same fashion. Okay, so we've just now done your first graph. You can see it has a slight curve, which is due to compounding interest, and it shows adequately well what's happening with your client's money. Now let's look at our output, because there's a lot of points yet to be obtained on this test regarding output, and another skill I want to teach you regarding your numbers. So I'm going to File, Print. It looks like I am inside. It's a little lopsided, so what I'm going to do is take my A column and move that over a bit. Let's take a look now. Good. Now, I've got some orphaned information here. I don't want my client to just kind of have his or her table cut. So what I'm going to do is put a page break in. Page breaks in Excel go both vertical and horizontal, and they go on the left side and the top of the cell. So you always want to make sure that when you pick a cell, you know it's going to break right there above that cell and on the left. Let me pick a bad one here to show you. If I pick in the middle and I say page layout, break, insert page break, then when I go look at my pages, they're cut in the middle. I don't want that. So I'm going to go back to breaks. I'm going to say reset all page breaks. I'm going to select A33. Why this one? Because I want there to be a blank line before the section heading there. So I'm going to hit break. Okay, now I should see a nice clean break. There's my present value table. There's my future value table. Now a second thing I want you to do. This page doesn't have any identifying information on it. Okay, so this is sensitive information. You want to make sure it has identifying information. We go to print titles, and we go to rows to repeat at top. And I'm going to select my title section. So I click on the 1, I drag to the 4. Okay, and now if I hit print preview, you'll see here's page 1, here's page 2. And they both have the title section on them. Okay, that's 5 points for each of those. I want a good page break, and I want those repeating titles. And again, I remind you here, ensure that you repeat your title section and that tables are not cut in the middle by a page break. All right. Let's see here. We also need print titles, header footer, custom footer, and our file path footer. All right, now there's one last 10-point skill that I want to teach you with this project, and that is how to prevent your user from making an error that will mess up your calculations. So I can take any cell in a spreadsheet. We're going to take the annual annuity payment. The way Excel's financial functions work, The payments have to be negative, symbolizing the fact that you're paying out of your pocket. It's being reduced from your account is being reduced by that negative. I can't have a positive number there. If that number is positive, none of my calculations really work. I just get gibberish. So I have to protect my spreadsheet. And the way you do that is you hold on to this, go to your data ribbon, and we're going to go to data validation. Okay, and we're going to create a rule. So data validation, and there's 3 things that you have to do to get your full credit. Okay, the first thing is, what do we allow? Well, we allow a decimal. Okay, look at your choices here. It can't be a whole number because you're going to lose your cents. It has to be a decimal, and it has to be less than or equal to, so you can just remember to go to the bottom of that box, less than or equal to 0, because the negative number is less than or equal to 0. Okay, now my input message, there are 2 things that have to be done for each message. The title is, I'll just say annual annuity payment. And I'm going to give my user a message saying the annual annuity payment must be a negative number in order for this spreadsheet to return accurate information. Okay, that's what's going to show up when this cell is selected. This is not a comment, the yellow box that we did on our last test. This is a data validation rule. Now the error alert gives us the style of the validation. You can make it either just kind of a for your information or a warning, but I want you to use the stop, because then nothing works until the problem is fixed. So if an error box comes up, we're going to call it invalid data. Okay, refrain from making light of your users' problems. They don't like that. So just give them a simple invalid data and remind them this number must be a negative number in order for the spreadsheet to work. All right, done. I've got a title, an error message in my input message, and my error alert. At this point, having programmed all of those error alerts, if I try to put a positive number in, listen, the bell goes off, and it won't do anything until you fix that. So that can come in handy to protect yourself and your client. So let's take one look here at our, okay, one thing I could fix here is that I could take, somehow my my formatting got messed up here. So I could fix this by making it all normal. There we go. And then taking it all back to the formatting I wanted. So I have comma. I got a little more than I bargained for. Take that off the year, center it. Try to center. It doesn't want to, so I'm going to say general. This happens sometimes. It's got itself in a custom format. So if you want to erase format, you just make that say general. Okay, so we've got those minuses. Everything's done there. This looks good. We've set our borders right. Let's look at our printout. Okay, I want you to get a perfect score on this. Be sure on the test to read through all of your instructions. Always watch for further instructions on your actual test. And read it closely, just in case I've put in some extra credit. And I forgot, make sure that you go into your test and hit F7. Spell check complete. You're good to go. Okay. And if you're having trouble with spelling, make sure that you go to these boxes before you do your spell check. Copy and paste the information outside. And what I mean by that is you'd go data, data validation. Okay, here's my message. So I'd copy this, Control C. Okay, put it somewhere. Then hit F7. There, it's all good. Then I could erase it. Okay, I often, sadly, I often see tests where I have students that get up to 15, 20 points of spelling errors. And also because my recorder is set in a certain way, you couldn't see that you need to have your file path footer. So if you spell check, get that footer, you're going to get a perfect score, and everyone's going to be happy, and you're going to learn lots of Excel. So good luck.